Rush is back in Battlefield 5 for this week's Tides of War. Sadly, it's only a temporary game mode. I know many people want it back permanently. Perhaps it's a discussion we can continue to have with DICE, and maybe it will come back in some sort of permanent manner in the future. But for the time being, you have about a week to play the game mode, and DICE has made massive overhauls to many of the maps and the pacing and balance of it all. Let's get into it. First of all, Rush is available on 3 maps. We have Devastation, Narvik, and Twisted Steel. They all play out pretty differently from one another. And DICE also made an extensive post on Reddit talking about the initial feedback they got about the Rush game mode and how they decided to change it and overhaul many of the aspects for it. It's actually pretty extensive. It's probably seen more changes than most of the other modes that have come back. Many of those changes focus on the specific sizing of the maps. They made them a little bit more narrow for less side flanking options that were completely hidden, allowing players to get 100% behind the enemy team without detection, so that's been reduced a bit. They've also made the pushing areas longer, so the defenders don't just have to camp on the objectives themselves. They can push up a bit and try and have like a little bit of a battle before the attackers get to the objectives, and then try and fall back to the objectives for maybe a secondary battle, which is definitely how Rush played out in some of the earlier iterations of Rush in previous Battlefield games. Specifically, it's much more similar to the way Battlefield 3's Rush played out, which felt like an epic battle for each MCOM in a series of stages just to get up to a set of MCOMs and arm them and destroy them. I think many people have great memories of Battlefield 3's Rush, and it was one of the leading inspirations for this redesign of Rush. One of the fundamental problems with trying to replicate Battlefield 3's style of Rush in Battlefield 5 is visibility. Simply put, the visibility in Battlefield 5 allows for a magnitude of camping far beyond what we've had in previous Battlefield games. Shooting an unsuppressed weapon in Battlefield 3 would spot you on the minimap, making any camper or somebody trying to flank or get a cheeky kill on somebody very easy to spot. Not to mention Q spotting and everything else was extremely spammable, so camping was much more difficult in Battlefield 3, and instead of just camping and getting all these instant kills all the time on unsuspecting enemies, you pushed up and had a straight-on firefight with enemies who kind of knew where you were and you knew where they were. It was more about a firefight. Battlefield 5's sort of frontline combat right now is extremely campy. I've got so many clips of me running around with an auto shotgun, just shooting tons of unsuspecting players in the back, people that just didn't even have a time to return fire on me because they have no idea where I am. And there was one sequence where I was just hiding in a shed endlessly, and anybody who kind of came by and ran past the shed, I just shot with a shotgun. Nobody found me, nobody discovered me. Finally, they blew up the shed after I'd probably killed the entire team once over, and I continued to do it in other parts of the map. The camping potential in Battlefield 5 makes linear game modes like this very difficult compared to previous games. And on Breakthrough, it doesn't seem to be quite as big of an issue because there's often strength in numbers. If there's one cheeky camper somewhere, somebody on your team will usually be able to take him out. But because Rush is a 16v16 mode right now, one camper can potentially obliterate a whole squad. And then that pushes over just because somebody was hiding in a weird little spot. And it doesn't feel as fun. It doesn't feel as skillful, in my opinion, compared to what Rush used to be. Furthermore, once it's combined with certain map design elements that really cater to the campy game style, things get really bad. The first set of objectives on Devastation takes place in this library building. This building is probably one of my least favorite spots in all of Battlefield 5. It is a building with every single angle exposed, 3 different elevation levels from the basement to the normal floor to the top floor that it can all shoot among each other, and the visibility among the bookcases, fire, and rubble makes it incredibly hard to see anyone. So usually if somebody's camping there, you're not going to see them until you see the flash from the muzzle of their weapon, and then you just have to hope that they're not a good enough player to kill you since they obviously have the jump on you. And because so many of the rounds I played on Devastation never made it past the first set of MCOMs, most of the gameplay was in this building, and it was just in my opinion, not an enjoyable experience. Way too chaotic, way too campy oriented. The first set of MCOMs on Twisted Steel are also pretty difficult, and I had many games that just never made it past the first set, which was unfortunate. And there's, again, some map design things that could be done to try and make the first set of MCOMs easier. Rush should always get progressively more difficult as it goes on, rather than starting off with the most difficult thing. So I think DICE can still look at those map design elements and try and tweak that a little bit. Now, one thing that Rush does well and that I appreciate is it gives us a smaller format game mode that can be a little bit more intimate, where one player can make a bigger difference on certain pushes and certain sequences, where you on your own can potentially destroy an entire squad, which will make a very big difference on the current flow of the gameplay. I enjoy the slightly less spammy, the slightly less chaotic game modes. It's not to say that Rush isn't intense. It is intense, but a good push or a good flank has a much bigger impact than it does on, say, Grand Operations or Breakthrough, where you've got 64 players in total. And if you get a good flank off, cool, but if you don't have strength in numbers behind you to support that flank, it's not going to count for as much. It counts for a lot more in Rush, and I like that. It feels like you can hear things a little bit better, there's less explosive spam, and everything you do makes more of an impact. And I like that a lot about Rush. Rush does that well. Also, it allows the attacking team to really focus specifically on one objective. Once you've taken out a certain MCOM, now you're just going for the second MCOM, where in Breakthrough, you've got two different objectives to try and capture. Often one of them makes more sense to go for before the other one, or you need to sort of oversee the capture of the other ones and maintain a stronghold on both of them to push through. It's much more difficult in a disorganized team to actually make that work on Breakthrough. Even if you have the better team skill-wise, it can still be extremely difficult because of the disorganization and players not wanting to stay behind and defend a point that has nobody attacking it. So Rush, in my opinion, is just a better mode for disorganization, and it plays out better because of that than Breakthrough. Now, one of the things that makes it really difficult to sort of review or analyze any sort of new game mode or give feedback is the fact that there's a complete lack of a team balancer in Battlefield 5 right now. Teams don't get scrambled in between rounds to try and mix and match the skill a bit better. And if you auto-join on a game, you're most likely to join a team that's getting absolutely dominated, because the servers that empty out the quickest are the teams that are getting absolutely thrashed by another team. So you go to auto-join a game mode, it puts you on these losing teams, and those teams don't stop losing ever because of the lack of team scramblers. So if you stick with a team and you're just like, I'm going to keep fighting until we win, that might just never happen, because the good team is going to stay in because they're like, we're winning every game, this is great. And the losing team is just going to keep shedding players and bringing in people who come in and go, oh God, we're getting dominated, let's leave. There's a serious fundamental problem with the team balancing issue in Battlefield 5 right now. It's been in the game since launch. I've seen complaints about this almost every single week of the game's lifespan, and there's been very little talk from DICE about trying to fix this issue. But specifically in Rush this time around, man, was there a lot of one-sided gameplay. And it makes it very difficult to give good, accurate feedback on these game modes when you're just trying to see past the insane skill differential between the two teams. And you're like, is this a good sequence of MCOMs? Or is just one team absolutely dominating the other because they're so much more skilled, or they're so imbalanced by comparison? So there's definitely that fundamental issue, and I think DICE needs to make a good push towards that. Performance and team balance are probably top of my list right now in terms of things that really need to get worked on. There's a billion other things in the game, but those two things could go a very long way toward making Battlefield 5 a much more enjoyable experience. Overall, it's nice seeing Rush back as a limited time game mode. I know a lot of people want to see it as a permanent game mode. I don't know if it would sustain a good population, at least on the PC side of things. If it's in there, I think most people still opt for Breakthrough because of the player size and the player numbers. Also, we forget that the assignment system very much feeds into the game mode system, and Rush is generally a short-lived game mode and doesn't give you enough opportunities to get enough kills or complete assignments, so people are going to gravitate towards the game modes that allows them to complete the assignments And that's a problem that I see with some of these game modes too, not getting enough player population, is DICE might be actually undercutting these game modes because of their assignment design. Anyway, if you've been missing Rush and Battlefield 5, get back on, play it now. The servers are very populated. It is without question better than it was before. Is it as good as it was in Battlefield 3? Probably not, or maybe I'm just remembering it more fondly from BF3, but it's an improvement overall, so that's good. DICE has still got a ways to go with the rest of the stuff in Battlefield 5 before we're all the way there. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.